This is Tabletop Babble, and I'm Amber. Today on the show, I chatted with freelance game writer and designer, TTRPG streamer, and podcaster Austin, who also happens to be a therapist for their day job. If you listened to the Banana Chant episode, then y'all know that you should be following Austin. It was an absolute pleasure having them on the show. We sat down on March 5th and talked about getting into the TTRPG space and their writing projects, therapy in games, and their podcast, Secret Histories of Nerd Mysteries. Hi, Austin, and welcome to Tabletop Babble. How are you today?
I'm doing okay. How about yourself?
Pretty chill. It's a sunny day where I'm at, and that means energy for me, because I hate winter and it's gloomy, so... Anyway, I'm super happy we found some time to sit down and talk with each other. Like, after Banana Chan came on and basically dedicated their entire self promo at the end to saying, go talk to Austin, follow Austin, check out Austin. I was like, okay, I have to have Austin on. So for my listeners, and for me too, what do you do in the table space? Who are you and what do you do?
I'm Austin. My pronouns are he, they, she. And I do design. I guess that's the easiest way to say it. I write and design tabletop games, and I also play. That's what it is. You play them. You play the game. I play on actual plays. Those are called actual plays and stuff. So I particularly really enjoy narrative design. So lore or setting or scenarios or quick starts and stuff like that. That's kind of what I enjoy doing with games. I like playtesting and helping people figure out mechanics. I'm not the best to come up with a mechanic, but if you hand me one, I can mess with it. So you mentioned Banana. Me and Banana are working on a game, and I've been doing a lot of the setting, narrative design stuff and helping when it came with mechanical stuff, but I'm not as skilled. Maybe that's something I'll learn because I'm still pretty new.
Yeah, so that's my usual next question for a guest is, how did you get started in TTRPGs? Is it something that you've been doing for a while but just now have got into the space, or what's that journey like?
Well, I guess, do you mean working on them or playing them or both? Or yes?
Yes to all of above. What was your first experience? Yeah. What was your first experience with RPGs? How did you get into the hobby? And then what was that transition into, I could write for games?
Yeah. Let me think. I guess the start, I played the gateway game. You with the dragons, and there's a cave-like place typically.
Sometimes treasure.
Sometimes treasures and traps and such. So I got it started playing that. And that was right when the current edition of it is out was. And so I was playing with friends who played older editions, and they were just getting started. So it was very loosey-goosey because they didn't know people didn't know the rules yet. They just started you want to play? And I was sure, because I've been wanting to play for a long time. And I was having a hard time finding a group that would either commit or let me play. So I played with them, and I had the most fun I think I've had. It was super great. So I played that a bunch, and then the way I bridged into writing for games and playing other games is I got on Twitter. It is very shocking to me the difference between the hobby if you're on Twitter versus off Twitter, because I have a lot of friends off Twitter, and they just the hobby is still that game and Pathfinder. And it's getting better because you have people, you have celebrities that are also gamers using their platform to elevate other games. So I have friends now that know about Honey Heist because the McElroys played it for one shot, or they know about what's another one they played?
Monster of the Week
because they played it. And so from that, people know Power About the Apocalypse, and it's getting better as the celebs that are the free PR play other games. But it's very night and day, which is so interesting to me. But the first game I wrote for was for Adam Bass, who is World Championship Gaming Company. he had me write for his game Cobwebs. I wrote like a scenario for that. And I was like, I want to write for more games. And then that's how I met Banana, because Banana and Adam are friends. And Banana was also in Cobwebs. And when I got done, I like had a bunch of fun. I ended up writing for another one of Adam's games. I wrote a setting for his game Necronautilus, where it's like the afterlife is space. And each planet you can go to is like someone's afterlife sort of situation. So I wrote the planet Ritual, which was like afterlife for people who did any kind of magic-y stuff, not just like a typical wizard. And like I got done with that, and then I was like, I really want to do more games. I was like, let me write for your game. Banana was like, or we make a game. And that's how that started. And since then I've written for like one other game, so I really enjoy it.
Going back to the whole like RPG scene on Twitter versus, RPG hobby space online versus RPG space hobby offline.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. It's such a weird, I find it interesting too, because it's such a weird thing, because when you're in it now, like in that space, it's hard to imagine like gaming before and what people are dealing outside of the online space.
I'm like, what do you even play? What do you do? Do you only like?
Yeah.
I still play the Dragon game for home games.
Yeah.
But the books are very long, and there are other quicker games to pick up.
Right. And I mean, in my game group, our home game, prior to doing stuff online, a lot of it was that friend who'd been playing old editions for a long time, and it was always like OSR game, right? It's all OSR. And I'm just like, how do people find new things? Because a lot of times what I see, and we're going to get into this, and I hope it doesn't hurt anybody's, whatever, it can hurt people's feelings, I don't care.
It's your show.
It's my show, I'm sorry, but it's my place. But I've seen things with D&D where people keep modifying and making these homebrew systems and doing a lot of work to make D&D, or say, to make the dragon game something it is not.
Yeah.
Are you like me and see that and get frustrated?
I don't see it as much now. Well, I still see like the game I play in 2 games with the same DM. One is homebrew setting that he made. We still use like all the core mechanics, but it's like his setting with some official content, because like it's there and it's a week you don't have to play in something, and then we're playing a module. Playing the module after playing like a heavily customized setting is rough. the modules are in that for that game are mean, and that's the weirdest thing is like playing it. It's like, I know this isn't something this DM did, because the way they usually run games is challenging, but not like impossible. Not like we're level 3 and there's a mind flayer here. Why? It's in the module. Well, why is it written like that? And so that's what I noticed the most with online, like even like on Twitter versus like if they're only on Facebook or just not a big social media presence, is like, even if you say TTRPG to someone who's been playing for like since first edition or whatever, they may not like understand what that acronym means, because there's like the one, and maybe sometimes there's Pathfinder, and maybe sometimes there's like Warhammer or something, and it's like there's so much out there, and a lot of like you were saying, the homebrew stuff, I find a lot of it's like people trying to give more power to players, give like even like try and like share the space more, and I'm like, there are games that just do that.
Right. Because I was going to go back to, so you were talking about your first experience playing an RPG and that you had the most fun. What about that experience was fun? You were using a module, or was it just friends having fun time figuring stuff out together?
It was friends. That wasn't a module. It was like I came in and it was like this group had been people. There's like three of them four of them. Four of them in this group that have been playing in campaigns together like all through college. And this is like it's at this point it's like probably would have been like 5 or 6 years by the time I came in, because it was like a year or two after college, after undergraduate years. And so it was like in their setting, they had like all like they did this like rotating DM thing, and it sounded pretty cool. I wasn't a part of that. And so this game was like in this setting they had made, but it was like 200 years later or whatever. And it was just like friends having a good time, and that's kind of what was fun. And I had never been able to, like, I hadn't played pretend like that, you know, because it's different than a video game, because you can do whatever you want. Like, there are some games that boast that, but like you can't really do whatever you want, because they have to think you may want to do it and program it in, and that's impossible for any team of people. Can't think of what one person may want, and that's fine. Like, I love RPG video games. There are some with a lot of choices and that make you feel very involved in the story you're telling, or that they're telling to you or whatever. But they can't do what tabletops can do, which is like, you can literally, like, what do you want to do? I don't know. What am I supposed to do? No, you can literally do anything right now. If you want to go like climb the lamppost and do a handstand, like, you'll have to try, but like we can totally go do that.
So for you coming into that new experience of being able to make up, do whatever you want, did you have some sort of like learning curve to it? Was there parts where you're like, I feel lost, confused, or was it more natural for you to do it?
I feel like it was natural. My DM and group at the time may have something different to say, but I feel like I kind of like got very into it. And at the time, like, I wasn't watching this is like early days of like people doing actual plays still too. So like I wasn't really watching or listening to any of those. I just like, I like had in my head, I'm like, you're supposed to come in and you're this character, and there's stuff that your character, and like all, like I had all of that in my head. And I don't know if it's like, if it was like because I was in like grad school that made it easy, like learning therapy stuff. Like, I don't know what it is that made it, but it was, I think the first night I was the one who role played like the most, and I had this whole idea for like my character, and like his backstory, and like what he's been through, and like what his drives were, and like why he was helping out this group in the first place. I was like, I want to do a bunch of flips. Like, I got a bow. I'm really good at navigating. I was a ranger. And I kind of wish I could go back and play that game again, because like I said, like it had just come out and people weren't as versed in the rules. And it was hard because like everyone else was like a more seasoned player, and playing back then was still very like punchy.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like a lot of those people have become more role play-y now. Like, at the time they weren't. Like, I remember there was one player who, this is fine if you need to do this. This is not there was one player who, with like, if it wasn't his turn in like a fight, he would just like go do stuff. We were playing like the GM and this player lived together, so we were at their house, like go like do stuff around the house, or like go like check his and that's, I want to say, that's fine if you need to do that. I know from knowing this person that there wasn't a need for that. It was just like I'm bored with like listening to people talk.
Well, I mean, that's fair. I mean, I think Dungeons and Dragons, or that combat system, some of the combat systems can be it's time for one person to do a bunch of things, and it might take 10 minutes for them to do a thing. So if you have attention problems like I would end up checking online, and it wasn't until my DM was like, it makes me feel very bad when you do that. Is there something else you can do? Because it feels like you're not here.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we had that talk, I was like, well, are you okay with me drawing at the table then? And then it was, yeah, that's fine.
Exactly. It's just a talk, because it would carry into like the fight be over, but he wouldn't know because he's not there. So we're like,
oh yeah.
It get into, we're role playing, and his character is like T-posing in a corner, not talking to anyone, and a fight starts, and he's like, combat mode.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a shortcoming of that initial way that you're supposed to play that game.
Yeah, and I think that's like getting better, but it's still like there's a lot of games that just do like I just lost it.
Mm-hmm.
Mask.
Maxes? How plural of mask guy?
Yeah, I like that game, and like that isn't. It has a fight stat. You don't have health. No one has health. Like one of my players, like I run that, and one of my players asks, like, "Well, when do you know the fight's over?" And I'm like, "When when thematically the fight's over." I like I feel like everyone comes up with their own system of tracking it, and I think it's kind of like the way that game says a good way to track it is like give your villain four conditional stats they could get, like angry, afraid, insecure, like the like emotional stats. Mm-hmm. And if one of the heroes is anything that like checks with them, that's like their health. And when they are all full, they can be overwhelmed in one way or another, and then like thematically the fight's over. And I think it's a super fun way to do stuff, and I think it'd be cool. I don't know of any Powered by the Apocalypse fantasy stuff. A lot of it's like modern-y stuff that I know of.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. The only thing that yeah, you're right. Like the Powered by the Apocalypse games that I have experienced for the most part have been like my favorite's The Warren, which is where you play as rabbits. Have you heard of that one?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh, I love that one. You could theme it kind of fantasy if you want, but it's not inherently like a high fantasy game.
I just think like that system could be cool for that, just because I know people get into like yesterday a dragon like took you down to 1 hit point, but you slept for 8 hours and you're fine, which is fine, right? Like I understand you need a mechanic for you to heal that isn't let's spend 8 hours of gameplay for a month like getting you to a fantasy hospital. But I think like a Powered by the Apocalypse thing could be cool for it, just because then it's like you could just not worry about it. Like it's you're all really cool, super dope fantasy heroes.
If I were gonna talk about games a little bit, I just did a spotlight episode for this show on Quest. Have you read Quest RPG yet?
I have not.
Okay, so I'm gonna plug my own content to you right now.
Welcome to my show. So I have some content for you that I'm gonna plug on my show.
No, but I would say because you're talking about it, and I think you and I like with what you're saying. I think somebody has done that kind of with Quest, and so I think you should probably check it out, maybe to help inspire you and if in your game stuff. I'm just really hype about it. Not paid to content to promote Quest or anything. I just personally
hey, Quest, if you're listening, if you want to pay,
you should look at it.
You should look into paying this podcast. They're great. Just saying. You want to throw? I don't know if they want ads. If you want an ad.
Thank you. But yeah,
just saying.
I think it's kind of going back to what I was saying too, where I think the disconnect from communities, like you have these bubbles of communities happening up, whether it be online, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, or in game shops, where people are like having the same kind of brain thoughts. It was like, ooh, wouldn't it be fun if we got rid of this thing or morphed it like this? Mm. Whereas, 3 states over or a whole nother country or continent over, mm-hmm. there's a group of people who are like, yeah, and then they make it. And then how do you like...
And I think that's what's been great about Twitter is like TTRPG space on Twitter feels big and small at the same time. Like I can't think of the last time I like found someone that followed me or I followed them that wasn't already connected to like at least 30 other people I already know.
I agree. It's like I feel like it's always like 3 degrees of separation. Like I remember the first time I met a McElroy because I just happened to know a broadsword, and it was like, this is weird that I'm like 3 steps away in this TTRPG space with like quote unquote RPG celebrities, and it's like
right. That's the weirdest thing. Like I speaking of that, like as you brought up earlier, like I'm friends with Banana, and she was on Critter Hug, which is Matt Mercer and Mika Burton. And like I was like watching out, like, this is so cool. And at the end, she's like, yeah, I'm working on a game with, and like said me, and I was like,
which also, by the way, check out another plugging someone else's content that is not your, but it's directly related to you, Banana Chan stuff.
Yeah, check out Banana Chan.
Yeah.
Hey, Banana, I know you're probably listening, and I'm gonna get you back for all those times you said my Banana Chan. I'm gonna keep score.
Hey, Kenny.
Hey, Amber.
I have a question for you.
All right, shoot.
If you could pick any one Magic the Gathering card to eat, which card would that be?
Acorn Catapult, because I want those squirrel nuts.
Good answer. I'm surprised at how fast you did that. I don't know, is that a real card?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, I didn't know. Cool, I learned something.
There's all kinds of stuff that you can learn on Red Mage Blue Mage, a Magic the Gathering talk show on the Geekspective Network.
If you're like me, an idiot who doesn't understand things, you can also learn from Kenny, who's great. We talk about Magic lore, how to actually play the game, what does a mana curve look like, and other cool stuff.
All that and more. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and pretty much any major platform. And we're on Twitter at RedBlueMTG.
Check us out! So here we're going to pivot a little bit, still related, of course, where you had brought up that you went to school for therapy and are a therapist.
Yes, I am currently a licensed therapist in the state of Michigan.
So on the show already, I've talked a couple times with other guests about like RPGs and how they relate to mental health. Mm-hmm. And since you are of that actual like educated field, I'm interested to hear your thoughts and feelings around therapy, mental health, and RPGs and how they kind of like connect.
Yeah, let me get my therapy mic.
Okay, switch out.
Okay, there we go. I don't think people that made TTRPGs or people who make TTRPGs understand that they're just making therapy tools. I'm here to tell you and anyone else listening that you're all just making therapy tools. It's literally what they are. It doesn't... A few things. One, your GM is not your therapist. Two, the other players are also not your therapist. Please treat neither of these groups of people like that. Because like you can have a therapy tool that is a therapeutic thing that you can use with people that you're not their therapist. I mean, think about if you like to go to a meditation class or something, or if you like to do hot yoga or something. Like those can be therapeutic, but depending on the context, you don't treat the other person like your therapist or those group of people like your therapy group. But it doesn't mean it doesn't have similar effects and can't have similar benefits for you. Being able to, anyone here, if you play like TTRPGs, like you're just doing mini therapy sessions with yourself, I cannot stress enough, it is literally, and even if you're playing a one-shot that you're like, I'm going to make the goofiest one-shot character that is just nonsense, I promise you, it's still part of you and you're getting something out. Even if it is like you don't get to be goofy IRL or whatever. The act of being able to make this character that you have control over and that you can ensure to some degree that like nothing too harmful happens to them if you are careful is a very powerful way to explore parts of yourself. And that's not to say like, I understand some games have higher danger meters than others. Some games you're like, we're not like, no one's gonna die. Or some games it's like anything's on the table. You know, that's up to you and your gaming group and what everyone agrees to. And I guess the system, because some systems are like I think Mass is like the kids probably shouldn't die. I think that's in the book. I can't remember. But I know, like that aside, it's a very powerful thing to be able to do.
Yeah, I was gonna say that a term I learned from Banana actually was called emotional bleed, and like dealing with maybe you're cognizant that you are coming into game and you are kind of working through something with a character, and maybe you're not, and then something like comes out after the fact and you realize, oh no, this is affecting me more than I've realized or I wanted to, right?
Right.
So from that aspect, how does an individual deal with that? Is it just going to their therapist and like working it out with them, or is there something they can do between, like the like if their therapist is not available right then?
If they're having like emotional bleed?
Yeah.
I think the best way to manage bleed is to talk with your group. And it can be with the group, or it can be with just the GM or just one other player. Like if it was like something interpersonal, you know, like I've had times where my character has conflict with someone else's character, and then I'll just like text them after because we're all on the line right now, you know, and just like check in and be like, everything's okay. And so it could be that, or it could be like talking as a group. Some groups will leave time for debrief after a game. Some groups like play right up until someone's like, I gotta go to bed right now, you know, so they don't get to fully debrief as a group. So maybe they're just like in their group chat or Discord or whatever, like for the people who could stay up, like just texting, or like they get on chat or something. But I think that's what I would recommend, is talking with the people who are in it. Because you can, if you have a therapist, you can talk to them about it. But like you said, it's most likely going to be your next session, which could be a week away, or it could be 2 weeks away, or it could, you know, and that's a long time to just kind of sit with that. And that's what I think is best, is that, or you can journal about it. If you want to, like, if you are like, no, I should talk to my therapist about this because it brought up like something super traumatic that I don't want to, because again, they're not my therapist. I don't want to throw that at my friends, but I need to save this to like be able to talk about with my therapist if you have one. But I find that being able to debrief and talk with the people who are in it is extremely healing if you're going through bleed.
Sure. And I think my next question after that is related to the fact that there are so many games coming out now that have harder themes, more deeper emotional themes, you know, especially in the indie space and lyric games and that kind of stuff. And if you're a GM running this game and you see somebody in your group who may be overstepping that boundary of like, we're not therapists, we're your friends, we care about you, but hey, like, how would you approach talking to that if you feel like you just don't know how to address the topic? Like, what would you suggest, or what would you do? The facial expression that Austin is making right now.
I'm trying to think of a nice way to say, just tell them to go to therapy.
Yeah,
and...
that's what I mean that's exactly what I may be talking from my own personal experience, maybe not at the gaming table, but with friendships I've had in the past where I basically got to the point where I was literally like, you need to go to therapy, please. And they took it so bad.
Which double means they need to go to therapy. I'm just saying, if someone says you should consider therapy and your reaction is to get angry, we call that a defense mechanism. That means you should extra go to therapy. You should probably call a therapist right now. If hearing us talk about that makes you mad at this podcast, you should pause it and Google therapists near me. I suggest the website Therapy Den. It's a great website that's committed to being anti-racist.
Good. Yes, that's excellent. Good. I agree. Because it's like, to me, I think it comes from a place of, obviously, I don't want anything to be wrong with me, because if there's something wrong with me, I have to deal with it. If I have to deal with it, I have to deal with my consequences for my actions.
Yeah. Listen, going to therapy isn't easy. I'm not here to say it's easy, but I am saying if things are getting to the point where you are acting out in this game, it is meant to be fun. I can't stress enough, like, games are meant to be fun. Like I said, they can be therapeutic and they can be helpful to your life in other ways, and it also can be, you know, there are also therapeutic RPGs out there and coming out, which are like a totally different thing. That's like, you probably shouldn't be playing that with just your friends anyway. And it's becoming more of a theme, I feel like, where like games are, especially in the indie scene, like inching towards that like talking about it, and some even trying to get to like the just like creating discourse in Discord, and like the in therapy we call like rupture and repair of like the relationship. And that's let's not play with fire is a lot to say about that, but as it becomes something more talked about, I think it's like something people should consider, and I think something like designers need to consider more. I think they need to be outlining in these things like, if this happens, you should go to therapy.
Yeah, and actually that's actually a great pivot to my next question, which is, if I am interested in designing a game that does have these heavy themes, and again, whether intentionally or unintentionally it's becoming a therapeutic tool,
Mm-hmm.
how would you like, how as a designer should I go about that?
You should find someone like me who happens to be a therapist and a game designer. You should not do it yourself. If you're legitimately like, I want to make a game that is specifically a therapeutic tool, you should link up with people who do that. Like, there's the team over at Games to Grow that's working on Critical Core, which is a therapeutic tabletop game that originally was like based around 5e, and I don't know what mechanics they're using at this point because it's been in development for a long time and it sounds like they've changed a few things. And I have not checked the development Discord, or I'm not on the dev team for that. I just backed it on Kickstarter, and I haven't checked the Discord on where they're at with that. But I would find people like that, or the what's the Bodhana group, I think that's its name. And they're another group of like therapists who do specifically tabletop RPG stuff. They have a convention in New York and everything. And so those are like people I try and link up with, because they might have consultants within their group that are willing to work with designers, or they might have designers in their group, or get lucky and find someone like me, and we can talk. But I think people can get into hot water when they try to make things outside of their scope, because making some sort of generalist therapeutic tool is not as easy as knowing what's going on with you, right? You may know what's going on with you and like what you need to do or what you need to tell your therapist or whatever, but like making a tool that you think could help a wider array of people is very difficult. And also, slapping therapeutic on things is not legal in all states. So anyone out there, be careful with that, because some states have very strict laws on what you can say is therapy and therapeutic and what isn't.
I was thinking, there's a lot more, if you're very online in the TTRPG space, there's lots of talks, obviously, the last few years about safety tools and putting safety structures in place for games. And the reason why it's important to me personally is because I would love to play more deeper themed games or things that are emotional, but I worry about obviously the people I would play with, or who I'm, because not everybody that I play personally wants to play these games. like, and so it's like trying to find people to play stuff. And one of the worries I have are people just using my personal trauma that comes out in games as like trauma bonding, or like trauma vampires. Is that a thing? Am I just making this up? This is just my personal experience.
You can't make up your own experience.
Well, yeah, I'm not making that up, but is that a real thing that people do, where they are intentionally trying to create these bonds just based on shared, like, strong trauma?
I mean, it happens. I can't speak to any one person in terms of their intentionality behind it, but trauma bonding is a thing that 100% happens. I guess I haven't experienced that in terms of gaming, but I wouldn't be shocked necessarily. And I think that's another good point of like finding people on board to play maybe a more difficult game emotionally, because not everyone wants that. That's sometimes like a struggle for me, because you get into like you get asked to join a game, and I've been joining more like actual plays and stuff where I don't know everyone in the game, like home games, and having different ideas about what you want the game to be versus everyone else. You're gonna be a group once again. Everyone gets a say. So going back to one of my home games, I'll use this as an example. We were in a situation where like one character was down, like 3 of us had 1 HP. There was like one person who was like fine. Everyone else was either unconscious or had 1 HP. One person was like paralyzed. It was like very tense. We were, for some reason, this module's had us in a standoff with 2 mind flayers at level 4. I don't know why they wrote this module like this. I don't want to. If you know what I'm referring to, you know the module. I don't. I was in a whole thing about it on Twitter already. So I don't want to name the module. So I don't know why it's written like that. And we're in this standoff, and it was like very stressful. Because it was like, we're all gonna die here. And I was like flipping through my character sheet. I'm like rolling dice for probability of like, would that work? Statistically, no. Like, it was so stressful. I was like, I'm gonna cry. I'm so freaked out. And that was really fun for me. But not everyone enjoys being put in a situation that's like, you feel like this person I care about is going to die and all of their friends are gonna die. But we got out of it. I was able to talk our way out of it, and that was really exciting. But it was definitely that high of being stressed, you know. And then when you got done, you're like, I need to go sit down and cry for like an hour. That was it was really, really a lot. But yeah, not everyone wants that. Not everyone wants to be in like a tense situation. Like I enjoy in games when I get to like deal with like oppression and I told my GM that for this home game, because in a different campaign of his I play a demon lady is what I'll say for the race. And like he knew that, and so like we went to a city where like the city was just like outwardly like not open doors for me and like glare, and I enjoyed being able to like combat that and having the group be like, what is everyone's deal? Like, you can't like, and having people rally around me like, they can't, we're just gonna leave, that's not okay. But not everyone wants that. And so, you know, I happen to find that for one home game, so I can explore it that way, but not everyone wants that for the game. Some people want games where like, that's not an issue and it's never been an issue. And sometimes I run into issues with that when like the table's mostly white. I'm not white, everybody listening. Because like I'll want it, but like someone else will have it as a line. Like there isn't like any of that stuff. And then I'm like, I don't know if you get to say that. And that's, but I don't want to be like that, you know. But I'm like, I don't know if all these white players can be like, we don't want any racism, because I'm like, but you're white.
Yeah. And it's kind of a weird, it's definitely an interesting thing too. It's like, it's kind of like maybe protecting themselves from dealing again with their, this is me just completely speculating, where it's like
we're jazzing right now. We're just jazz.
Yeah, so complete speculation of like why an all white table would put up like line or veil or whatever racism. It's like, are you just trying to like be blind to your own like real world experience of like you perpetuating this, or like what's going on? Because I personally, as a mixed person, like I've never had, I'm like you, I kind of actually not enjoy it, but I'm okay with it being present because it's something that speaks to my experience. And it's nice, like you said, to have a group of people being like, hey, wait a minute, or like combat that in like at the table. So yeah.
Especially because like when I play in modern settings, like I always have characters who are very into like hip hop, R&B, like very into like black art. But I'm like, a lot of black art's built around that shared experience of oppression, and if it doesn't exist in this world,
where did
Biggie doesn't write the song "Who Shot Ya."
Yeah,
we don't like Tupac doesn't have Thug Life, like that. Those songs don't exist. That music isn't there.
Yeah, it's
and so it creates a hard. I like have a hard time to conceptualize when we're in like a modern or real world setting or something. You know, if it's just like it's the '90s, but there's magic, or it's like it's right now, but there are vampires or whatever, you know.
I just thinking about that movie with Will Smith and the orcs. What's that movie? Gosh, Bright. Have you seen Bright?
Yeah, like something like that, you know. Like I'm like, that's a cool setting, but if you take that out, or say like, it's one thing to have it be like, you know, it was a problem, but it's somehow fixed, and I don't, you know, you hand wave it away, you know, like it's no longer like, no one's going to do that to you now. Like, that's one thing. But if it's like it's never been an issue, like, that's fine. That's also, you can just hand away and be like, that doesn't happen here in this alternate setting. I'm like, for me as a player that's Black, and for how I've experienced the world and how I make OCs usually, it's like, I'm like, okay, all the music they like and the media they like probably doesn't exist. And you can say it exists, but I'm like, that just creates a hard, like, you don't have like NWA doesn't happen if there isn't like police oppression.
Right.
Which is fine, but I'm like, that just isn't there. You know that, right? And sometimes it feels like people, again, like either white players and white GMs, or even just like non-Black players and GMs don't think about that part of history when they like just want to take it out, you know? And I think it's fine to take it out if you're like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to deal with that in your story if it's something you want. Like, I don't know if I can handle that's different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if a GM is honest and is like, I don't think I can handle that with nuance, and I don't want to hurt you or hurt anyone else who maybe, if it's like, if you're watching it or something, or if it's not just like a private game. So I get that for public games. So when it's a private game, it's like, I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're just playing with each other. I get for like a public game, like, you worry about that, but
yeah. I have a question for you that's maybe related. I think, and it deals with, like you said, people are worried about hurting other people.
Mm-hmm.
I've been thinking a lot about community stuff and harm and these bigger topics, and I feel like I just have my own thoughts and I haven't really bounced it off really with other people. And this is just my speculation, and I want to know your thoughts around it too. It's like, I feel like there is a certain level of harm that I'm okay happening with me because I know how to deal with it if the other person also knows how to deal with it. But I feel sometimes that too many people are too afraid to do outright harm that they end up sheltering themselves or like safeguarding themselves to a point where it can actually cause harm.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no question there. That's my statement.
Yeah, it's a good statement.
And I would like to know what your thoughts are around that.
Yeah, I haven't thought about it, but I guess let's just keep freeform jazzing.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. You know, I feel like there is this. I guess I'll use another example. So, my day job, I'm a therapist. I'm in a group practice. I don't see my coworkers in person now, but when I did, like, I don't shut up. My schedule is built in such a way that I have a lot of breaks in between clients because I enjoy that, to be able to like walk around and talk to people and like mess around on my computer or whatever. And I am very open at my office, and have been. I used to be the only Black worker, and I'm not anymore. Only Black therapist. But I was very open that like, you can ask me your stupid question and I'll let you know if it's stupid. As long as you're okay with me being like, what the hell are you talking about? Then like, you can ask me. But if you're not gonna be okay with me responding like that, then don't. Like, and that's the thing, right? Like, if you're not gonna be okay with the rebuttal, then I guess, yeah, you shouldn't do it. If you're worried about a rebuttal and you don't think you can handle it, that's one thing. Because I feel like I can handle the stupid question as long as it's not like overtly offensive, you know? Like, there are some stupid questions like, we have answered that and you don't need to ask it anymore. Like, you don't need to ask me about if you can rap along. We've answered that question. don't bother me with that. That's a Google question, okay? And I guess it's different. Like, I've given certain people consent to like ask me the questions they feel are hard. And in that way, like, I think it opens up because like, I'd rather you ask me than like Google it and get something like stupid. Or I can tell you like, oh, actually there's something you could Google for that. Like, go look up this person or whatever. And yeah, and I feel like it's this worry of like, if you hurt your friend, they won't be your friend anymore. And I want to say right now, like, that's up to them. Just, everyone has their own lines of like, we're not friends or whatever. But it gets to the point of like, kind of like what you said, where it it is worse than if it just happened in the game or something.
Wow, it's heavy. Sorry for these. This is why I asked you, because like, are you okay if we talk? Because I don't want to like drain your brain.
This is what I do, and I'm not writing games.
Yeah, and sometimes you want to put a boundary up between what your work and then a hobby chat's like, and I wanted to respect that, so I asked at the beginning. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's just I've had a lot of thoughts around community spaces and harm and how to deal with harm lately, and it's one of those like I don't really talk to a lot of people about it, and I thought, oh well, I've got Austin on a call. But I want to kind of like now shift towards, we talked about like what you like in games and like what you play out and stuff like that. How has your background in therapy kind of like, is there a bleed over into your game writing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, me and Ben are working on our game, it's called Deimos Academy. I think 2 or 3 mechanics we put in were like, hey, there's this thing in therapy, we should put that in the game. Or hey, I'm working on either a therapy gaming group or a gaming group that has minor therapeutic skill building and elements. I'm deciding on which way to swing it because of those laws I talked about earlier. And so there are like things I'm working on that with a therapist in my city too, who's a gamer, and there are things we were like putting in that, like trying to make a character sheet, and with that too, I was like, hey, I'm doing this like somewhere else, we should put it in this game too. So it definitely does influence like how I write stuff and think about stuff, and like if I get control over mechanics or things like that, it definitely does. Like being a therapist makes me a better, in my opinion, makes me a better player and a better game designer and writer. And being a game designer and writer makes me a better therapist.
2 great tastes that taste great together.
Yep.
I would be interested if you can share maybe a mechanic that has been influenced by or is directly like a therapy tool.
In that gaming group I talked about, we have a resiliency mechanic. And right now we're building around 5th edition because it's something that a lot of people know. And in terms of like getting people in and marketing and stuff, it's something that's easy to market. And that's why it's my day job. And so we add in this like resiliency mechanic of like being able to depict like, because there's not like a lot of games would have like a stat for like how much you can endure something, and so that's entirely from like therapy stuff and the idea of like how can you build up your resiliency skill. And it's also like a skill that was like, in theory, we haven't like run this group yet because we can't decide if we want to try and figure it out online, because HIPAA gets tough when you want to do like digital maps and stuff, because like Roll20 is not HIPAA compliant.
No, I wouldn't think so.
And so we're like, well, what do we have like a separate, like, is one of us logged into like a separate Google Meet or Zoom, and it's just screen shared of the map? We have to figure that part out. But in theory, this resiliency stat is one that like grows over time, because most stats are like static until you get a thing to change it. And instead this would just like somehow we would dole out like resiliency tokens or something.
Sure.
I think in Kids on Brooms they call them adversity tokens or something like that.
I like that. I like the idea of having something that you get to collect and build up over time that allows you to like be able to deal with things more. So into like fun on top, like so we got the mechanic, the theory mechanics and everything, but like as far as themes and things that you enjoy writing as like, I don't know, genre, what do you tend to gravitate towards?
I enjoy a few things. I enjoy vampires. I enjoy like found family stuff. I enjoy, which is weird. So I found, because so Deimos is a horror game, and I found that I enjoy creepy stuff. Austin, cannot do horror. like like I can play this game I made, and I think I can handle like horror tabletop stuff because it's very like,
Yeah.
it's like out there, and it's really like how much work do I put into imagining it, and if it's zero because it's scary, then I'm fine. But like video games and movies, no thanks. But I find I've enjoyed doing that kind of stuff. And I do a lot of stuff too. I enjoy when it's like found family or community or something as a stat, if it is a stat, or like being able to, I don't know, I enjoy painting a picture of like, this is what this like world would be, and here's like this community you're in, and here are like the people in it, and anything like that. Like I could write I don't know, it could be like a space thing. I don't write a lot of space things, but if I get to make like a ship that has like this community around it, then I'll enjoy it.
I do know that you have a podcast that you do, right? A Secret Histories of Nerd Mysteries.
Yeah.
Is it tabletop related, or is it?
It's not, but it is fun.
Yeah. No, I was like, is it? Because I'm like, it doesn't matter to me. I want to hear about it because it kind of, I think, again, everything is connected to each other. So tell me about Secret Histories of Nerd Mysteries. What's all that about?
Yeah, Shom is what a fan like wrote us a review once, and like Shom, and we're like, huh, that is what it'd be, huh? We didn't think of that, huh? But it's me, and it's my friend Brenda, who is Batman and Sabin on Twitter. And we just meet, like, so we've had that idea for a while. Like, it was February last year. Brenda came to visit because she used to live here. She moved away. She came to visit. And we were, like, hanging out and eating lunch or something. And we both had talked about wanting to make a podcast. And I was like, you want to make a podcast together? And she's like, yeah, let's do it. And we kind of started pitching ideas of just, like, what if it's just us talking? Because me and Brenda are both have the curse of knowledge. I just know stuff for no reason. It's not useful information, but I know it. Like the original sketch for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles sold for $1 million.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the whole podcast.
That's the whole podcast. I love it.
So each week we pick, like, either me or Brenda picks a topic and the other person comes in blind. So this week's episode, it's hard because like our episodes come out the day before we record the next episode. So this week's episode that is out as of this recording of you is Sonic the Hedgehog 1991, the video game. So I picked that topic, and Brenda came and did not know what the topic was. And so we do our intro and we talk about like the news a little bit, and it's like a humor podcast. So like we do a bit on something that we also do not, I can't stress enough, we do not write the bits beforehand. and then one of us like gets to it. This upcoming episode is Brenda's topic. And so like we go back and forth with that. The only other thing that we do know is at the end of each month, we release on Wednesdays. The last Wednesday of each month is our movie special where we watch 2 films and talk about it.
Gosh, I'm delighted. I love the whole like setup of the person doesn't know what you're going to be talking about. It's going to be a delight and a roller coaster, maybe, and surprises and fun.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's a lot of fun. And the proof of us being cursed with knowledge, the other person always knows stuff about the thing.
Oh.
Like one week it was we talked about the game Night Trap from Sega, which the reason Night Trap's important, it is linked intrinsically to the reason why we have the ESRB, which is the game rating system.
Oh, is it the video one? The one that it's like got like, what do they call that? The in-game videos?
Yes.
Yeah. I think I know that.
That is, so like I knew stuff about the ESRB stuff because I also knew stuff about Mortal Kombat and the court cases that happened around it and all of that stuff. But even Night Trap is linked to the console wars between Sega and Nintendo. which the console wars, everyone, if you've never read up about the console wars, it is the most wild bafu time in gaming that you didn't know you were alive for. If you're born before like 1995, you were there for it and you just don't know.
You were not cognizant of it.
Yeah, and it's just wild. They were like, and it's weird because like it's a bunch of business people, you know. But they're like at these events. They're like at what is now like kind of seen as E3, like just like bad mouthing each other on stage at their press events. Like, oh yeah, and say be like, oh yeah, Nintendo. Oh, I don't need a plumber. Like, Nintendo used to have this periphery that was like a bazooka.
Yeah.
And when they showcased it at this event, they turned on stage, pointed it at Sega's booth because it was in view, and said, "It's great for hedgehog hunting."
Oh
That's like live on stage. You can find the video of that.
Wow. What a time. What a time.
Yeah, it's like that would nothing like the console wars would ever like Sony and Xbox would never.
No, they would never. Absolutely not. So Austin, we've been talking for a little bit. If people wanted to find you on the internet, find the things that you're doing, what are you up to? Where can they do that? Take it away.
You can find me on Twitter at Sailor Scott Austin. That's at Sailor SCT Austin. Because full Sailor Scott Austin was taken. So I use the abbreviated. It works. It gets the gist across. So you can find me there, or you can find me on my podcast, like you talked about earlier, Secret Histories of Nerd Mysteries. It releases every Wednesday wherever you get podcasts. And you can find that on Twitter at Nerd Mysteries. This is our most recent episode with Sonic the Hedgehog. We have an upcoming episode that is on a very important, very small detective boy. We have episodes out on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We have 2 episodes out on Chuck E. Cheese because he just won't stop. We have a bunch of movie specials. We did some holiday specials recently. So there's a bunch of stuff to check out, and go check it out and have a good time. Leave me a review if you do.
And also, I'm going to remind you, you're on the new Hootopia show.
I am on the new Hootopia show. Thanks for reminding me. I'm on the Donuts and Duels, playing Kids on Brooms. It releases Saturdays on Saturday.
Whatever time. Find it on the internet.
Yeah, go to Hootopia. It's the pinned post for their new schedule. I'm on the Saturday one, Donuts and Duels. It's a Kids on Brooms game. I'm also on a different show, I now remember, called Mind and the Martyr. That releases we stream on Mondays. I'm a guest now. I don't know if I'll stay because it's like 9 to midnight, but I'm having a lot of fun. But other than that, I have some writing coming out in Brinkwood, Blood of the Tyrants, I think is the full name. I wrote a scenario, or I wrote a setting for that, because Brinkwood's like a Euro fantasy vampire setting. And I was like, what if it was 1966 America and the vampires were gentrifiers? So I'm on that game. I am all done with my stuff for it. I'm not a developer on it, so I don't know their timeline for releasing stuff, but you can check their that's by Eric the Barrick on Twitter, so you can check his Twitter and follow along the Kickstarter if you didn't back it, because he still like updates it for like dev updates, so you can check that. And like I said, me and Banana Chan are working on Deimos Academy. That is my first like full game I'm on, like start to finish. I'm a designer and everything, not just a writer. And you can expect that Kickstarter to launch in September is our projected date, which is the first time that's been said somewhere, I believe. That's an exclusive.
Ooh, exclusive. Thank you for the exclusive.
Yeah. I asked Banana like yesterday. I was like, oh, I'm going to be on a show. What are we... Because like I'm still so new to this.
Yeah,
and like
sure.
Banana's like seasoned, you know, and knows when to share stuff and when not to. And I was like, so I've just been telling people I'm on this game called Deimos Academy. Look out for it. What should I say? And they were like, just say like projected September.
You heard it here first, everybody.
Yeah, everybody.
Deimos Academy projected.
From Banana's lips to your ears. Thanks, Banana.
Thanks, Banana. I love that your guys' podcast episodes are tied to each other. It's going to end on thanks, Banana.
It is. I'm absolutely good. Banana Chan, you thought I wouldn't get you back one day. you'll never. I will always say your name more times.
Thank you so much, Austin, for coming on. This has been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the show. You can find me on Twitter at RocketOrca, Kenny as at Volfmere, and John is at CrosswaysGM. Tabletop Babble is part of the Geekspective Network. Go to Geekspective.com to check out all our other shows or follow us on Twitter at Geekspective. Our theme music was provided by the Battle Bards.